Hello and welcome to
CRHEATE.
For this episode, I'm delighted to welcome education marketer Mr. Kyle Campbell.
We are looking at UWE Bristol. They have done a superb hero video.
Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. And that you could, for example, have the power within one night to dream 75 years of time.
Good.
Naturally, as you began on this adventure of dreams, you would fulfill all your wishes. You would have every kind of pleasure you could conceive. And then you would get more and more adventurous. And you would make further and further out gambles as to what you would dream. And finally, you would dream where you are now.
It came out around 9 months ago, but it came up on my radar recently because as my job, I write a newsletter. I'm always looking at what unis are doing. And in the past, I've been really skeptical of hero content. And I'm sure, you probably agree with me that some of the videos that are positioned as like these hero pieces, they don't always hit the mark, but this one is quite different. So it's not so much the cinematography and how gorgeous it looks. I mean, I think if you pay an agency enough, you can kind of get that look and feel. But the thing that really makes it different for me is this sort of underlying narrative and voiceover that goes with it. And the two just really fit. I believe the voiceover is from a philosopher called Alan Watts.
Correct,
And it's a kind of old school, it sort of reminds me of Apple ads, if that makes sense. So you've got this sort of older voice from, a good few years in the past, sort of powering this new creative. It's about inspiration. It's about growth. It's about following your dreams. It does sound quite cliche on the surface, but I was very shocked to watch this and think, wow, this is actually working. It looks great. And if you look at like the YouTube comments underneath it, you've even got students going, wow, this is actually a really good advert for a university. I actually enjoyed watching this. And there's probably like, I don't know, it's about 11, 15 comments, but all of them are really positive. There's a decent number of reviews on it. And typically when you look at this stuff, you either get indifference from the audience, like it's clear this has been used in a bunch of paid ads, or you get the opposite effect where students commenting and going, well, this hasn't been my case, and they push back against the creative. But this seems like one of those very rare opportunities, rare moments when you do a hero piece, and even though it's quite generic, it seems to land, that it's high quality. And I think if we're going to produce hero content, it's nice to kind of look at an example like this, rather than some examples where I see where it's either just stock footage, B-roll with a kind of stock soundtrack, which is fine, but it's kind of a box tick. Or it takes a really stilted script. This one totally avoids those sort of pitfalls and puts out something that's worthwhile and enjoyable to watch.
Okay, what's really interesting about that film, and you touched on it, is the voiceover, which is not a script written for the film. It's, as you say, it's a recording of philosopher Alan Watts, who's come back into vogue very much recently, actually. He pops up all over the place. Quite a kind of, it's a very interesting character in himself. But I think there was a line right at the end there, which I think really leans into what you were saying about the way in which it might capture the audience. The final line is, finally you would dream where you are right now. Which is a kind of, it's a really interesting line to end on, assuming that the person you're speaking to isn't at UWE, isn't at the University of West of England. They are in a cinema or maybe watching on YouTube or whatever. So yeah, how do you feel it makes that kind of connection?
There's an interesting thing here, and it reminds me, I was at a conference recently, it was a UCAS one, and they were looking at what drives student decisions. And typically in higher ed, we've really majored on the career options, right? We appeal to the rational, we appeal to the future. And I'm not about to say that careers aren't important to students when they're making their decisions. But there's this report that's just landed from UCAS. I think it's called Project Next Generation, which sounds quite a big step, right? It's a big report. And it actually reveals that the top reason that students are choosing their qualifications and their degrees is because they're choosing a subject that they love, they have an interest for, and it's something they're kind of taking on because they'll know the future will sort of sort out itself later, and they believe if they do something they're passionate about or they love, and that they can, and this is the exact, the category that was highlighted, i.e. following their dreams. All of these things sort of merge into that decision, and it's very emotive. And yet in higher ed we focus on the stats, the figures, the salaries, and again it's really important, but they're not actually driving decisions as much as we think. So I think this creative, published before this report even existed, so they haven't read it and acted on it or anything, but I think they've really tapped into that sentiment that students want to do something they love and they want to follow a passion rather than necessarily wonder about that A to B linear career journey that we seem to focus on. So that's why I really like it. It's not just because it's cinematic, it's not just because it's a really nice use of voiceover. It actually hits what matters to students when they are making those choices. So it's a really intelligent piece of creative.
Yeah, I think you've really hit on it there. It's something I kind of think a lot connected with university advertising or marketing is the effort that is put on rational argument at by and then subsequently missing their emotional input. And I think that's what this does. So even though you've got a sense of the rational through the imagery and the interplay between the person in one state and then appearing in another state, so there's that sense of sort of rational narrative there, but it's a dream, isn't it? And it's about ambition and about inspiration and as much. And so it's tapping into something which is potentially much harder to analyze, but the impact is still there.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a very intelligent design piece. It seems like they've looked at creative, they've looked at underlying messaging, they've looked at things and words that keep hooking the audience in. It's not a video you can easily stop watching. It's not so long that you'd lose your attention. It's not trying to tax you. It's taking you through step by step using an already very powerful speech to keep you going. So all those sort of auditory devices, and it kind of holds that attention to the end, and it does communicate a very strong message while doing so.
And what's also interesting, I thought, was that they have taken the key protagonists from the film and then expanded on their story within a secondary piece of content, which is smart, right? From a content marketing point of view, and from the YouTube model, if you like, of hero hub content. Maybe the next bit is the help content. Maybe there's a way in which that narrative can extend right the way through. But it's interesting to use those characters to navigate that next level of content through, building on those personalities, and so it's very nicely done.
The first time I had my interview was the first time I even came to Bristol, and the campus was just incredible.
It's a practical university. It's about degrees where you can go into industry afterwards and you can gain experience while you're here.
The environment here is social, it's exciting, it's diverse, it's multicultural, and I like the energy, I like the spirit.
The brilliant thing about UWE Bristol for our course, it's got 100% employability rate, which is amazing. So I know that once I graduate, I have a job.
Bristol's a really vibrant city, and there's lots of interesting institutions and companies in the area, and we have really strong links with them, and we always look for opportunities to give our students experience so that they're really well prepared for industry after they graduate.
UWE Bristol was different from other universities because they had such a high amount of hours that were dedicated to simulation, and that was really important to me.
There are so many students doing degrees all over the country that it's these extra opportunities that students are offered that make them stand out.
The teaching has been amazing. It's been so engaging. All the teaching staff are really friendly, they're all welcoming, and you really feel like part of a family.
So I find teaching really rewarding, working with young people who are excited and interested and motivated, and it's great to see them learn throughout their degree but also go on beyond graduation to succeed in industry.
You feel like there's a sense of belonging, so there's a community and there's great people around that are trying to do great things for you.
Higher education is this amazing place of growth where you can learn from people who have worked in industry, meet other like-minded people, and can explore all the things you're interested in. It's really inspiring.
It's been intense, but it's been brilliant. It's just incredible how much we've learned, and I love it.
So I think this is quite a common device that we see now. So yeah, we have that hero piece with our kind of students that were when we followed them through and their various journeys and their subject areas, and we unpack it. What I would like to see more from universities is going that next step. So for instance, if you've got this very good student studying medicine, perhaps then when someone lands on that page and watches that story, there's a sign up to hear from various interesting things that are happening on that degree or topics associated to medicine. Now, medicine's an example I'm pulling out here, but it's a very different kind of program. So maybe the call to action is to sign up to an email series that guides someone through that journey of becoming like a medicine student. I see a lot of hero videos and they all look really good. Maybe not quite hitting the mark of this one, but they're not bad. But that's where it stops. You see the piece. It's got 100,000 views. It's done its job in advertising, but you've got these real students on campus, and they're your heroes. And then sometimes unis don't take the next step and then use them. And I always find it's like a massive gap, really. Because if you're only using them once in this hero piece of content, you might as well just use stock photography, right? If you're not building out those stories and save yourself tens of thousands of pounds. And it's a decision, really. So yeah, if it's important to you to teach real students, that's awesome. But if you're not giving them a voice anyway, why bother? So that's the challenge, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting mindset changes that university marketers could start to think about is university as not an institution but a destination, and the difference that might have on what you create, how you create it, and the engagement that you subsequently get from your audience. Absolutely.
We're seeing this a lot post-pandemic, funnily enough. I say post-pandemic, it's not like COVID's gone away, right? It's just become like something we can handle a bit better. But I've noticed a lot of universities now leaning into we're open for business again, essentially. Right, this is our campus, this is our environment, but they're not promoting themselves as a destination, i.e. come to X university. They're promoting the location or the environment they're in. So a university that's proper leading the pack on this at the moment is East University London. They have dropped I'm not going to call it a virtual talk, that doesn't do it justice, but essentially they've taken the journey of 3 different students, how they navigate a city, the areas in East London that they really like to visit, the people they interact with. And they've essentially assigned a high production value film crew with them to capture those moments in such a compelling way. Honestly, the quality of this footage, it is so colourful. The sound design is to die for.
Fear not, dear viewer, we will be returning to this subject in a future episode.